market. Good morning, Dr. Walker. How are you?
Good morning, John. Thanks for having me on.
Dr. Walker, what are you seeing right now? We're hearing a lot of yield reductions as opposed to our historic yield of last year. Has anyone done any research or got an inclination into what's causing this to the rice world this year?
Well, John, it has been a difficult year from start to finish. We've had various challenges along the way. As most of our folks know, we had, for the most part, a late start on planting. We were able to get some rice in a timely fashion. But a lot of our rice was planted later, but then July was a tough month for us. Really, from July to about mid-August, nighttime temperatures seem to be at least one of the culprits. As we go back through the history, I know in the Mid-South there's a few years that stand out to us as really good years. 2007 was a good year, and then 2012 through 14 have been really good years, with 13 and 14 being record years. But when we look at those years and look at temperatures, the nighttime temperature usually was 70 degrees or below for an average during those months. We also have those years that we'd like to forget, 2010, 2011, and 2015 certainly is shaping up to be one of those years. But the common factor there, when you look at nighttime temperatures, we're looking at about 74 degrees, especially during the month of July, or certainly during those months and times and weeks where it's very critical during the reproductive phase. So, that's certainly one of the culprits. But again, there's other factors to consider, and we are certainly looking into all of those factors. But nighttime temperatures is a very big challenge for us.
Dr. Walker, I've heard that a lot already. We've faced the same conditions as we move through our corn crop. A lot of growers lost that roughly 35 to 50 units of nitrogen due to the rain and the cool, wet season. And the corn crop, we know, is pretty well set so far. Our harvest line is somewhere in Missouri now, and it's gone through. We know we were 15 to 20 bushels off on most production scenarios. We lost that. Everyone fertilized at about 250 units of nitrogen with a yield goal of roughly 210, and a lot of growers realize that 170 to 180 yield target in corn. So I can certainly appreciate the rarity and maybe potential uniqueness of this year and the loss of fertilizer. Dr. Walker, have you seen it across conventionals, some of those hybrid rices that are out there, as well as the Clearfield? Is it universally, I guess you could say, affecting the rice crop as a whole?
Well, from all indications that we have with our boots on the ground and the relationships that we have in multiple segments of the industry, yes, it appears to be a pretty common thing. I mean, conventional pure line varieties, our Clearfield pure line varieties, even hybrids are being affected at various degrees. And the thing that we have to consider is, a lot of things go into it. We start a crop, and at the end of the day, I mean, weather is going to be a huge determining factor of what our potential is. Obviously, weather didn't play into our favor this year, but there's other things also. It's a challenging year. Economics weren't all that great. We had some challenging weather events early on. We had many people talking about some other limiting factors that we have to remember. Weed control was a challenge for a lot of folks. Certainly, fertilizer management is very critical early on in setting the yield potential, and in pockets throughout the rice belt there were those areas that were impacted. So again, we have a lot of things each year when we start the year that challenge, and so the cumulative losses when you start taking away potential from weed control, taking away from potential from fertilizer efficiency, coupled with the nighttime temperatures, those yields can vary quite a bit across all of those particular varieties, but all of them nonetheless are impacted in a very similar manner in conditions that we've had this year.
I've heard all of that. I'm glad that y'all are seeing it and y'all are actively pursuing the cause of it and potential releases of these trouble problems and spots as much as we can control it from a production standpoint. With the weather being such a factor on yield, are we also going to see it in milling quality? I know that's where a lot of our producers get those premiums or deductions, is in their actual grain quality at the mill. Have y'all seen anything to this point on that?
Well, there's been discussion about milling, and I will report what I know to be true, at least true from the standpoint of the mills and the contact that we've had with them. Our Clearfield Pure Line varieties are holding up very well on milling. We're seeing a lot of milling still in the high 50s, low 60s. I don't think that's the case for everything out there. Certainly, milling is impacted by the genetics as well as the interaction between genetics and environment. But I'm very pleased to say that we've held up very good in milling on the varieties that we market. Milling will be a concern, and the nighttime temp certainly impacts the overall appearance of the finished product. So we will have some challenges with this crop. From the reports that we have, one of the saving graces may be that the further we move north, the later the rice was planted, and historically our later planted rice has a better milling quality and grain appearance. And so we still have the chance to have a lot of high quality rice harvested this year in the United States.
Well, Dr. Walker, we went into this growing season with a lot of carryover in on-farm storage and with some of the bigger facilities. Do you see the offset of the low yields in this year helping us with that overhead and excess storage as we move into the 2016 planting season and commodity price potentially?
Well, and you make a good point, John. We did have a lot of carryover, but there's two things going in to that issue. Number one is we didn't plant the crop that we expected to plant. August certified acres suggested that we only planted about 1.8 million acres of long grain rice in the South. The forecast was around 2.1, so we were off 300,000 to 400,000 acres in total acres that got planted. And then again, the other thing is, early forecasts suggested that we would not be off much in yields from a year ago, but we have to remember that last year, and to a certain extent the year before, were exceptional yields. High, beat the record by 300 or 400 pounds per acre. So, and then this year certainly is shaping up to be a year where we will be very challenged to average over the 7,000 per acre, mark in terms of yield. So both of those things added together certainly should, help to resolve some of the carryover that we had. And then even this week, been a lot of discussion about how close we are, maybe even to the point where we're ready to sign an agreement with China, so that China would be a buyer, potential buyer for our rice. We know that China is the largest importer of rice. And so having the potential to get into that market is certainly a bullish event, coupled with, again, the lower yields and the lower acres that we have this year.
Well, that's very encouraging to our growers out there. A bullish market in a low commodity current situation would help everyone. out there on the turn row. We now have learned to look west all the way around to the far east for all cropping decisions at planting. They've certainly affected this year with the increase in grain sorghum across the Mid-South and the lower Delta. I see them, if everything holds and all this information becomes true, they'll be the same way in rice again. So, Dr. Walker, we sincerely appreciate your time today and your insight into what you're seeing, and we sincerely appreciate all the work that Horizon Ag does to provide us with stable, high-performing clear field lines. We appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, John.